Hi, everyone. So, in this movie, I just want to talk a little bit about the Netflix Serpent movie, a true crime docuseries about Charles Sobrage. It's played by Tahar Rahim, and it's very well done. There's 8 episodes, totally binge worthy, all true, based on fact. Some things were changed, the names of the victims, the dialogue was created, and they tell you this in the movie that they, had to create a narrative there. But what I really liked about this movie, based on the Vietnamese-born French con man serial killer, who was who was a drug and gem dealer, and he swindled tourists on the hippie trail in Southeast Asia in the 1970s. And he had an accomplice, Marie Andre Leclerc, who was played by Jenna Coleman. And he was captured because of a large part because of the work of a Dutch ambassador, Herman Nippenberg, played by Billy Howell. And that's the actor on the left and the real person on the right. So here you're seeing the actor on the left, the real person on the right, and the same here. Actor on the left, the real killer on the right, with his girlfriend there, Leclerc. So this movie is very well done, and what I really liked about this movie was that the producers made the main protagonist the Dutch ambassador, who helped over years. It took years to put the evidence together. Remember, this is in the 1970s, right? Before the internet, before email. All they had were telephone and faxes, and of course, capturing criminals who, like this man, this murderer, was going around to different countries. I mean, he was killing France, Thailand, India. I mean, he was killing people in different countries. It was very difficult to finally capture him. But I did appreciate that they intentionally left him out of the movie. They did not interview him. They did go by some of past interviews that he gave. Now, he became very famous for this being the Serpent, the serial killer. After he was captured, he was made a media star in France. His notoriety. He became infamous, much like Amanda Knox, Raphael Solecito, and Rudy Guede. He got fame from it. And these directors of this movie decided they were not going to make the killer the star. Unlike, with Amanda Knox, she gets her own Netflix movie and she's narrating it and she's actually talking over the victim. And there's one short clip of the victim speaking on camera, Meredith Kircher. So instead, I think possibly in reaction to that, because this movie was started in 2013, and that was, right around the time that was all Amanda Knox was made a star. They purposefully kept, the details of the murder themselves. They didn't go into all the gory details of how he killed the people. They didn't glamorize the killing. So you're not going to see any really gory, depictions of how he actually killed them. And it's not going to be from his point of view. There's no sympathy for the murderer. You see him as others saw him. The main actor here, the main perception was through Herman Nippenberg, the Dutch ambassador. So anyways, the movie was very well made. Like I said, definitely binge-worthy. Highly recommend. There were some things changed. This man, this murderer would poison people first before killing them. And at one scene, there were some things in the movie that they didn't put in because they didn't think people would believe it. For example, the murderer here, when he was in prison in India after being caught there, he was on his day of release or a day before his release or something like that. He threw a birthday party for a prison guard or threw a party of some sort to be released, and he poisoned the prison guard and everybody else and escaped. And then they caught him again, and then he had to serve another 10 years. He escaped prison multiple times. The first time he escaped prison by faking an appendicitis, and after they removed his appendix, he escaped from the hospital. So he is a very clever criminal, very clever at escaping. Now, another most interesting part of this, which is also similar to Amanda Knox, is that at the very end, right now he's in prison in Nepal. Okay, he was free for a while. He was a celebrity, notorious celebrity of sorts, being interviewed by everyone on TV, and he was so arrogant, right? He was getting a lot of attention for a few years, but then his attention was waning, right? People weren't paying so much attention to him anymore. So what he did, this murderer, Sobraj, he actually went back to Nepal, a country where he had murdered some backpackers, and was never caught for it because they didn't have enough evidence. Oh, and the fashion is really good in this movie too. You see, they fashioned the wardrobe after 70s style icons. So the clothes are really cool in this, very 1970s feel. They did a very excellent job making you feel like you were in the 1970s. So I love that as well about this movie. But that's the real French ambassador and his wife there during the time. So like I said, the creators never got in touch with the real Sobraj out of respect for the victims' families. So I like that they kept the killer out of the movie completely, didn't take any input from him. He was left out. Okay, there were several events that happened in Sobraj's real life that didn't make it into the series because the writers didn't think people would actually believe them. For example, it's a fact that Sobraj escaped prison in India in the 80s by throwing a birthday party for a prison guard and poisoning the prison staff in the process. It also happened that the first day of Herman's retirement, that's the Dutch ambassador, was the same day he got the call saying Sobraj had finally been caught. So people didn't think they would really believe that. The Dutch ambassador has never met the murderer Sobraj. He had no interest in meeting him. He just wanted him caught. That's an important thing to mention. Like this, the murderer is not the important. What's important is justice. People want justice. They don't care about the murderer. They want justice for the victims. But unfortunately, and like I said, in the case of Amanda Knox and other cases, Westminster 3 and others, the murderer gets all the attention, and that's unfortunate. And I do appreciate that the production team of this movie made sure to keep the murder out of it and make it from the viewpoint of the Dutch ambassador who captured the serial killer. So some things were fudged. For example, they say in the movie, Sobraj didn't serve his victims drugged tea to knock them out, but it was actually coffee because the natural bitterness masked the drug's flavor. So there's one change they made. There was another change where he drugged an entire group of electrical engineers who were visiting India at the time, and they said they were German. In the movie, they said they were a group of German engineers, but they were actually, in reality, French engineers. So he actually poisoned like 30 people at the same time, a group of French electrical engineers. And one last thing that reminded me of the similarity between Amanda Knox and this Charles Sobraj. Charles Sobraj, his crime spree spanned many years in many countries, numerous spells of poison. The drama ends, however, with his final arrest in 2003, when for reasons unknown he returned to the one country where he had a warrant out for his arrest. It says the reason are still a matter of conjecture only known to himself, but many believe it's because he wanted the attention. And there he is under arrest. So here Sobraj was. He was out of prison. He was free. He was notorious. He was enjoying this notoriety, being interviewed everywhere, telling his story. And then to get more, because his attention on him was waning, he went back to Nepal actually hired a photographer to take pictures of him there to let everyone know he was there. And the next thing you know, he was arrested, and he didn't think they would have the evidence against him, but it turned out his ex-girlfriend, who would die later of ovarian cancer at the age of 38, Leclerc, she had confessed in prison that and given a full account of what they had done and where they had been, and through her confession admitted that they had both been in Nepal and the passports they used the Dutch passports they used there, because he would kill people and then use their passports. He'd slip his picture in there, and so that's how he evaded detection crossing country borders. And another thing that's not mentioned in the movie is that he married a third time when he was 64. He married a 20-year-old Nahida Biswas, and she's at the bottom here. She's saying, "Oh, he's innocent. There's no evidence against him." So two things here remind me of Man of Knox. One is that returning to the scene of the crime for notoriety or press attention. And this is exactly what Amanda Knox did in returning to Italy to give her talk there. And when she was there, she actually called on the prosecutor. "I'd like to meet the prosecutor, Menini. I think we should meet, let's come to an understanding." Like, she was really shoving it in their faces. Like, "I'm back. You can't touch me now." Just like Charles Sobrage thought he was going to do, and almost did, but the Dutch ambassador, Nippenberger, sent the confession from the girlfriend over to the Nepalese police, and they were able to charge him and keep the charges there. So now he's in prison, where he should be, where Man of Knox should be. And also the fact that you have this girlfriend here who's claiming, "Oh, he's innocent. There's no evidence. He's innocent." And of course, it's absolutely ridiculous. There's overwhelming evidence against this man. He's murdered so many people. And they don't even exactly know how many people that this Charles Sobrage has murdered. They only know some of them. But luckily, justice was served, and after enjoying some notoriety, he's back where he belongs, in prison. So yeah, so I do appreciate again that these producers of the show did make an effort to keep the murderer out of it and not make the murderer the protagonist, but to make the people, the Dutch ambassador who helped to capture this killer, was the main protagonist. And I hope that perhaps they would do the same thing one day for the murder of Meredith Kercher. I'm hoping that either these producers or some other producers will come together and make a movie from the viewpoint of Meredith Kercher and her friends who suffered this horrific tragedy in Perugia, Italy, and get their point of view. They were so traumatized, Meredith and her friends, that they couldn't even talk to the press afterwards. Unlike the suspected killers, the convicted killers, Amanda Raphael and Rudy Gaudet, they can't shut up, right? They've been in the press on and on and on. So I'm hoping that happens one day, that there is more objective, movie about the murder of Meredith Kercher that doesn't have the murderer suspect with her name on the title and talking over the victim in clips in the movie. And I wonder if that's the reason why they did this way, that the reason why they made the Serpent this way, knowing how the murderer keeps getting all this, sucking in all the attention for their crimes, instead rightfully giving it to the people who have captured these murderers. So anyways, that is what I have to say about The Serpent. Excellent movie. Highly recommend it. Totally binge-worthy. And true story. Can't resist a true story. All right. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.